Here we are, nearing the end of the summer. And what an adventure it's been as we have had over a dozen voices talk about their love of Indiana Jones during the first two parts of this monumental collaboration project. And though it brings me sadness to know that this third installment is the final part, I'm also incredibly excited for you to hear what this last round of contributors had to say about our hunky, treasure-hunting archaeologist professor. When I thought about who I could turn to as trusted friends and podcasters to lead things off in this last hurrah, there was really only one option. They've featured on every single collaboration project I've put together over the last year and a half. They've been kind enough to let me feature as a collaborator on some of their episodes, and they're genuinely some of my favorite people. And this is not a slight to all of the incredible shows I listen to and interact with regularly, but they're my personal favorite podcast in the movie space. You've probably guessed who it is at this point, but if not, allow me to introduce you to the one, the only, the dream team from Movies and Us and TV and Us. It's Jennifer Hahn and Sarah Callan. Take it away, ladies.
Hello, hello. We are from the Movies and Us podcast. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan. And we are a weekly gathering place that is all about film stories and connection. So come hang out with us. Come watch movies with us. Search for Movies and Us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on all the places: Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, at Pod. So come hang out with us and let's talk movies together.
Yeah. We're just so grateful to be a part of this special collab episode for an incredible film. We just have to take this moment to also just say we're big fans of Andrew and the Revisionist Almanac podcast in general. He's just such an amazing pillar of the film podcast community, incredible human. We love collabing with him. We're so honored and excited that we get to talk Raiders of the Lost Ark together with a whole bunch of other people that have thoughts, feelings, opinions about this movie, and specifically in its role as, I think, the new chosen revised Best Picture winner from that year. So just excited to get to revisit this movie, honestly. What a gem of a film.
Oh my gosh. It is so much fun to be revisiting it again. And I can't wait to listen to this whole episode, this whole collab episode, and hear what everybody has to say, because this is such an iconic film. And man, everybody kind of sees something different or something else stands out for all of us in a little bit different ways. So I'm very excited to see what everybody else has to say about this movie that still freaking rocks all these years later.
40 plus years later.
Wow.
That's crazy. Yeah. I'm curious, for you watching this in your most recent watch, like, how does this film hold up? Like, all those years later, sometimes you watch films from like the 80s or whatnot, and you're just like, there's some things that didn't age as well, or it doesn't look as good, or the humor doesn't land. How does Raiders of the Lost Ark hold up with the test of time for you?
Yeah, I think this holds up pretty well. Like, a lot of it is still really great. I think one of the things that you often see in older films is that female characters are just, oh man, they're just kind of painful to watch nowadays and don't have a lot of agency in some older films. And we don't get that here. Marion is, man, she is a fully fleshed out character. She is three-dimensional. She is making choices for herself. She can drink a guy under the table, which is legit. You go, girl. She is a small business owner. Yes, ma'am. So there's just so much with Marion that I absolutely loved. So I think that holds up. I think the action set pieces are still so thrilling to watch. And I think the character of Indiana Jones also just is so much fun to spend time with. And so I think this film really does hold up, and it's so much fun to watch even 40 plus years later. And what a testament to Spielberg and everybody on this team that helped contribute to something that has had such incredible staying power. Yeah, Jen, what about you? Does this film hold up for you?
Oh my gosh, it totally does. There's a few like shots where visually you're like, okay, they just didn't have technology the way that we do back then. But I think the action sequences in this film are absolutely incredible. Like, because they were so tactile, there was so much that was actually shot that way, or it's set in a set and has a place and objects that they're actually interacting with. Just, I feel this way so often with older films, but I think this film especially does action set pieces so well without the use of CGI and all of the fancy schmancy technology that we have today. They really had to commit to the vision and be really creative and really precise with the pacing and the editing and the visuals, and for it to land really well and for it to be believable and thrilling. And so I think that really stood out to me so much, is how well these action set pieces have me at the edge of my seat all these times. And I know what happens too. And I'm still so thrilled by them. Obviously, I think one of the big things that stood out to me this recent watch, and that I felt like I had more brain capacity to really like observe a little bit more closely, is the score. We know that John Williams is a legend. He is such a pivotal part of what makes this film so great. So I think that's all like been said, done, shouted from the rooftops a million times. What I think was really notable for me for observing the score and how it works to support, especially the action sequences, is how much a score matches the editing and the visuals beat for beat. I think it's incredible. And I think it adds so much to heightening the feeling and the emotion and the explosive moments, and also the moments of tension within the action set pieces. I was thinking a lot about Tom and Jerry actually while watching this, because in the same way that the visuals are big and over the top in Tom and Jerry, the music is so perfectly aligned, moment to moment, beat for beat in Tom and Jerry. And I think that makes it really thrilling and exciting. But Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark does a lot of that as well. I'm going to call it a few sequences that this is really employed very well. In the Nazi desert plain sequence right afterwards, when Indy is escaping away and they're driving off, when it's loud because we're visually in the crowd, the score is large and soaring and really lively. When we cut quickly to a short 2-3 second clip of the three of our main characters talking with each other as they're scheming for their escape route, the score also becomes really quiet. And then it's loud again when we cut back to, and there's a lot of quick cuts like that. And the score is perfectly matched, perfectly paced to that. The truck takeover sequence, another moment right after this, where every time Indy lands a punch or lands a gunshot or something, the musical punches are almost perfectly aligned as well. So I think that is what I felt most strongly about and was so captivated by in this most recent watch of this film, is how much the score is so precise, down to the like beat for beat level instead of just like the scene to scene level. That was really, really impressive to see, and I think makes all the difference for this film landing and kind of having the legacy that it does.
Oh, yes, absolutely agree. Again, everybody has said it, but we're going to say it again, that John Williams is a genius, and what he has been able to contribute to this film cannot be overstated. Like,
Yeah.
his score helps create so much of the emotion that you feel in this without it ever feeling like overpowering or manipulative or anything. Like you said, the score and the visuals are just perfectly matched to each other. Everything is working together to support this film and each of the scenes. So I love that. The score is so good. The other thing that I wanted to shout out that was really top of mind to me after or during this most recent rewatch is how refreshing Indiana Jones is as a action adventure protagonist, especially 40 plus years later. Like, I feel like Indiana Jones is a really good example of like non-toxic masculinity. And I love that this film shows him in all of these different contexts. He's constantly making mistakes. He's constantly failing, and he continues to move forward. Like, he doesn't have that many successes or that many triumphs. And I think that really helps to humanize him. And then we also see he's afraid of snakes and is constantly complaining about the snakes, but he continues to move forward. And so I loved that little bit of weakness. Even in that fight with that giant dude at the plane, he fights dirty and he bites the guy. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. If the dude is like towering over you and like 100 pounds bigger than you, yeah, you're going to do everything you can to like try and stay alive. So I loved how Indiana Jones is just a regular dude. You know, he knows a bunch of stuff about artifacts and things. He knows a lot. He's a great professor, but he's still a regular dude. He's not a superhero. He doesn't have plot armor on, you know. He's also not this like, you know, he's not like this like big ripped dude, you know, that has all of these guns that he's constantly coming in blazing. Like, it's so different than I feel like so many of our action movies today look like. And it was just so refreshing to see just a regular human, fallible dude just out here trying to do his best. He is out of his depth for a lot of the movie. And I think for me that helps make him more endearing. And he's just making it up as he goes along. And I don't know, I think that makes him that vulnerability and his ability to think on his feet and his failures help make him such an entertaining protagonist to follow along, because he's a lot like the rest of us. And I think that makes this film all the more exciting and helps contribute to it being so iconic and having such staying power.
And it really makes us want to root for him too. I think it's really interesting to see how much he's so trusting too. And sometimes he trusts the wrong people. And there's an earnestness about him that I think is so endearing and very different from a lot of the protagonists, especially in action movies that I think we get today, that have a lot more of that cynicism, a lot more of that competency that's also paired with having been burned a bunch of times and betrayed. Like, he has been betrayed, but he's kind of still just trying to believe the best in people and maybe trusting the wrong people. And it gets him into tough situations, but that's really endearing. It's very the 80s mystique of it all as well, which I think is just, it's a good dose for us here in the year 2025, just needing a little bit of that earnestness and that goodness that he has too, that I think is so felt. So good.
And I also love that he's grumpy too. Like, he's just a grumpy guy. And a lot of times when he encounters like yet another obstacle, he's kind of like, okay, I guess we're going to do this. Like, he just seems like he just wants a nap and a snack. Like, he doesn't want all this business anymore. And again, so relatable. We would be grumpy too if we had to go on this whole adventure. So there's just so much about this character and the way that he's constructed. And then obviously Harrison Ford's performance that just makes him so endearing, like you were saying, and so relatable. And I think that helps us want to hang out with him too. Like, yeah, let's go on this adventure with Indy, who's kind of like us, except he probably has more advanced degrees, but he's still just like us.
Yeah. No, it's so good. And it almost doesn't even matter where he's going or what he's doing. We just want to be with it. We want to see what he's up to. We want to see how he gets himself out of the next pickle that he finds himself in. And it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be playful. It's going to be fun along the way. So, yeah, what an incredible film. Just so thrilled that we got this excuse to revisit this movie as a part of this special collab episode. So huge shout out to Andrew for organizing and coordinating and pulling together all of these different voices to share all of the different thoughts and opinions we have about the dimensions of this film. There's so much here. I'm so intrigued to hear what everyone else is going to talk about of all the different filmmaking components, the different scenes, the different moments, the dimensions of the character. Man, there's so much here. So this will be quite a beautiful mosaic of all of our voices and thoughts and opinions and takes about this film. So thank you to Andrew for organizing this. And yeah, with that, we will be excited to hear the next segment.
Welcome to a little mini episode of Post-Film Clarity.
We're back, bitches.
We're going to be covering Raiders of the Lost Ark, a little fun little tease. Thank you again, Andrew, for this.
I'm surprised we're not banned from our first appearance, but I greatly appreciate Andrew from Revisionist Almanac for rocking with us and letting us come back here and cause more of a ruckus. I think we're going to behave this time, though. I think.
We'll keep the profanity down this time.
No, we won't. No, we won't. Don't lie to these people. And where can we be found, Lindsay, if people would like to find us?
We can be found on Instagram at PostFilmClarityPod, PostFilmClarityPod on TikTok and YouTube. And we can be found at Post Film Clarity on Letterboxd.
This is true. Also, if people want to send you emails, where would they send them to?
You can send us emails at postfilmclaritypod@gmail.com.
And Lindsay
Please.
and I love emails. And I think someone said that they thought we were being sarcastic the last time we said that. We are being so dead ass. I love emails.
Yeah, I want to get an email so bad.
We love correspondence.
Of just like a stranger.
Yeah.
Like it won't be weird.
No, it's not weird.
Please.
I mean, you can make it weird, but don't.
Yeah, don't be weird. Be pleasant and gentle with my kind heart.
Exactly. Don't piss me off. And don't hurt Lindsay's feelings. Those are the rules. So anyway, what are we covering today?
We're covering Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I probably haven't seen since I was a little girl. This movie is so graphic.
Yeah, it's kind of jarring and a little out of Steven Spielberg's normal wheelhouse. He's not a super violent action movie kind of bloody director, but I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of his more violent movies for sure, until of course we get into like Saving Private Ryan, which is a gore fest.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I've never even finished it. I can't stand war movies, honestly. Like, unpopular opinion. I
think I agree with you.
I can't do it. They're too much. It's a lot. So yeah, I forgot to warn you that this movie is also super graphic because I haven't seen it in a long time either. I've definitely seen it as an adult, but probably not within the last 10 to 15 years or so. And something that stuck out to me right away on this most recent watch was how fucking cool Marion is. Can we talk about the queen herself?
Yeah, she should be gay. I think she's gay.
Here we go again. Lindsay, this is not about our gay agenda.
Yes, it is. It always is.
But yeah, Marion's a bisexual at minimum.
Oh my god, so freaking hot. Like
She's the best.
The first outfit that you see her in.
During the drinking contest?
Yes.
My god.
Oh my god.
I was like,
The green shirt. Green is her color.
I know.
It makes her pop.
I think she has green eyes, Karen Allen, if I'm not mistaken.
She does have green eyes.
She is a mega babe. Like, honestly.
And her chin dimple. Oh my god. There's nothing I love more than a beautiful nose and a chin dimple. That is like the most beautiful assets.
You're so real for
features.
that. She is 73 years old, and she must have been about 70 when they did the most recent Indiana Jones movie. She's still so beautiful. She looks incredible, and she aged very naturally. She was one of the like OG like female action stars, if you really think about it, because at the time this movie came out, like female characters weren't doing that thing, you know, like it was mostly the guy gets to be the hero and the girls just like run around in dresses screaming and crying.
When you jump to the second Indiana Jones, that's
ex-
exactly what it is.
That's exactly what it is. I'm like,
it's so weird.
What a downgrade for the female lead, honestly. What a drag. But yeah, Karen Allen was like one of my heroes growing up for sure. She gives me like, she's like the Laura Croft prototype, if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
She's like...
that's so true.
1930s Laura Croft.
Because she has a braid. Her hair is braided in that first scene.
I wonder if that character is based off of her.
Maybe. I could see it.
I could totally see that. Wow. Oh, man, we should have done some research. But we're not going to. Anyway.
I want to talk about the 2008 Parker Brothers limited edition Indiana Jones wooden crate Monopoly game.
Yes. Fun fact about Lindsay and I, we both owned this exact same copy of Monopoly at the same time. Obviously, Lindsay was probably 7 or 8 and I was 20.
Yeah.
And
I remember unboxing this. We got it like for Christmas.
me too. I didn't even know my family liked Indiana Jones like that for real, but for some reason, I don't know if it was my mom or my dad. I feel like it might have been, maybe it was like a Walmart thing or a Sam's Club thing, but they were so excited to buy this Monopoly like limited edition game. And when we saw it, my little sister and I saw that crate, we were like, like you could hear the John
Yeah.
Williams score
Yeah.
behind us.
I think it gives you splinters. I feel like I remember.
So
was
many.
like- yeah.
My fingertips were
gosh.
cut the fuck up. And I didn't care. Oh my god. I think it had, oh duh, that's probably why they released it. I think they had a Crystal Skull piece in there.
Oh.
This must have been around the time that the Crystal Skull movie had come out. Let me see real quick if I can find all the pieces. I know one of them was the hat, obviously. One of them was the whip,
Yeah.
a Crystal Skull. What else did we have? Oh, duh, of course, the Holy Grail from the third movie and the Ark of the Covenant. These are fucking rad.
I'm getting this game. I'm going to get it from my grandma.
Wow.
And we can play it.
Yeah, I need this. I need this back in my life, Lindsay. I feel like this is a very niche like childhood item to have, and it makes perfect sense that us two weirdos who just found each other randomly in the wild would both. It's kismet.
It's so random. So random. Because, I mean, this was a limited edition.
This was
2008.
Exclusive.
Yes. Limited edition.
So when Lindsay and I saw Temple of Doom together at the movie theaters last summer, actually, that was the day we came up with this podcast. Do you remember that?
I do not.
That was our first
That was
our first
wait.
production meeting. We walked out of Indiana
we saw
Jones.
Indiana Jones,
and
and
the
then we
Temple of
went to
Doom.
a little bakery.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, not Indiana Jones being our origin story.
Whoa. That's so funny.
That's the day
Also,
we
Temple
decided.
of Doom. I know you don't like that one, but it's my favorite one.
Oh god, that's such a terrible take, but I'll forgive you until you see The Last Crusade, which I think you'll like it.
Is that the most recent one?
No, that's the third one. That's the one with him and his father, who is played by Sean
Oh,
Connery.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you'll like it.
I probably haven't seen it since I was also little. Because we own like all of them.
Yeah, the third one is definitely my favorite. Back to the first one, I was telling Lindsay the sound design portion of the Academy Museum in Los Angeles. I visited about a year ago, last summer, and there's a whole room dedicated to the iconic stone rolling scene when he's escaping the temple, that big opening sequence. And it rocked my world. I love a behind the scenes, obviously it's part of the reason why we even have this podcast. I love behind the scenes knowledge. I love the process that goes into making movies and the magic of it all and the technical aspects. But a cool thing about the museum exhibit is it's the scene from the time Indy realizes the boulder is going to start chasing him until about the time he gets out of the cave itself. And they start with, they'll play it for you once with just the audio from the day they made the movie in 1980. It's crazy. You can hear young Steven Spielberg saying action, and it just sounds like a bunch of plastic knocking around because that's what it is. It's like foam, it's plastic, it sounds cheap. It's not real. It's just, it's like a kid playing with blocks. And then they strip that sound away and they go layer by layer and they play the scene again with all the footsteps. Then they play the scene again with every time they added a bow and arrow sound. Then they play it again with the rock rolling. Then they play the scene again with the twig snapping when he falls into that little hole. Then they play it again with all the dialogue that they had to record after the fact because it sounded so bad on the day. So I was telling Lindsay what ADR is, and how they go back and basically re-record everything they said from like months ago so it sounds better. And then
Like, actually blows my mind.
I'm so shocked you didn't know this because you pay so close attention to like people's dialogue. But yeah, especially in older movies, it's all re-recorded.
Yeah, cool. Because, like, all the time I'm like, your, like, words are not matching up. And it's like, somebody was slacking a little, and I picked up on it.
Lindsay knows the bad dubs now. This is a very good dub. You can't tell at all. The lip sync is perfect.
Like, the fact that it's just all styrofoam plastic,
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
I know, because it looks so real.
It makes no sense.
And because of the sound design, it sounds and feels so real. So then they play it, like I said, layer by layer, adding all these elements. And then the final track, they play it again with the John Williams score added to the mix. So by the time you watch them build this scene with just sound, it's like they play it like 10 to 15 times. And you notice every little click, every breath, every note of music, every snap of a twig, every footstep. And you're like, holy shit, this movie they put so much care and love into just the sound design. And then the final scene, of course, of the exhibit is they play the whole take with every layer of audio added to it. It's got to be like 30 tracks easily, with all the stuff they added to it. And they had to do that all by hand back in the day. Isn't that crazy?
I don't know. I can't even fathom what that even means.
Like recording it on tape and then like cutting it.
Oh my gosh.
It's nuts, girl. It's nuts.
Okay, I'm so curious what one little scene, like how many weeks that probably
Oh my God,
would
that
take
probably
to
took
like edit it.
That probably took like a month. I don't even know, but it's magnificent. And this is a great example of like how important sound design and also like visual effects are to making a movie come to life. And I was telling Lindsay when we were watching it, I was like, nowadays this would all just be computers.
Oh my gosh, I hate that so much. It's like the literal art of it is lost.
Yeah, it's all computers now, unfortunately. So where do you want to go next?
I only like Temple of Doom because of Ke Huy Quan, and only Ke Huy Quan.
Yeah, that makes sense. He is very precious in that movie. And I think it's right before The Goonies. Anyway, he was on fire in the 80s. That makes sense. But God, Temple of Doom just irks my spirit.
Yeah, well, when we watched it together and you brought up like how different the female leads are, it puts like a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, because at that point, I think you hadn't seen this one, like you said, since probably almost 20 years ago. So when you look at it through the lens of like, damn, we just had Karen Allen for the first one, and now we've got this like stereotypical hysterical woman who's screaming the whole movie and doesn't want to get dirty, and it's just a pain in the ass. I was like, damn, like, Steve, why you do us like that? But back to Raiders. Why did you enjoy this movie so much on your first rewatch as an adult? What was it about it?
That's a good question. I really liked that there isn't really any success in the movie. It's kind of just focused around the fantasy and like Indy's like journey.
Wow. Damn.
Like he kind of fails over and over again. I think I love fantasy. Fantasy is my favorite genre.
Me too.
And when there's no true like, this isn't a success, this isn't a failure, it's just about the game.
It's just the journey.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe what makes it stand out as far as other, like, because you think of other 80s action movies that were out at the time. It was very like Rambo, very Arnold Schwarzenegger, very like tough guy with guns. Like giant muscles.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford is just not that kind of hero.
He's honestly not really a hero.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he's so flawed. He basically leaves Marion with a bunch of evil people. Like, if you look at, I don't know, superheroes, they just want to save the girl.
Yeah.
But Indy isn't really doing that. He is more so focused on the actual artifacts and his fixated interests.
I was just gonna say that he definitely wants to save the artifact first and foremost. Marion, and that comes up in later movies. Marion is kind of an afterthought to him sometimes.
Yeah.
And
oh, you know what? That's such a good point, because it's like the first scene that you see Marion, she's like, "You ruined my life," and Indy is just like,
"Yeah, so can I get that
anyways?"
Yeah. It's like, actually, I'm here to ruin it some more. Where's your dad's necklace?
Like,
I need it.
I've got cold hard cash. I've got places to be.
Help a man out. Yeah, he's very much he's a hot nerd. He's a different type of action star. Like I said, especially for that time, he really, I think casting him in this movie really changed audience's perception of what an action star could look like. And then I think when you get to the end of the decade and you hit the Die Hard era, and he's got a lot of Indiana Jones in him. He's very, he's just like an average guy who's like, he's just clever. That's his thing. He's clever and he's resourceful and he's funny and sarcastic. And John McClane, I think you don't get John McClane without Indiana Jones paving the way first. And then, of course, all the later movies we got with that kind of die-hard style of action hero. I feel like that style of action is completely owes a debt to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Steven Spielberg changed so much for this genre.
Yeah, I like what you've got here, vulnerable. A vulnerable hero.
Mm-hmm.
With vulnerability, you just open yourself up to being flawed, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's more relatable. It's not like He-Man or, Superman. Of course they're going to win.
The whole every other day I'm a professor, and then when I'm not a professor, I'm finding lost artifacts.
Genius concept, honestly.
I think something unfortunate, though, about the movie, it ends with the lost artifact just getting stacked into a warehouse.
Yeah, into a box.
Yeah, dismissing, Indy's entire journey.
You're right. He quote unquote wins at the end, sure, because he stays alive, but that artifact is just in a box somewhere in a warehouse, like sitting there.
Who knows what else?
With thousands of other items, and it's like, oh, it's kind of a hollow victory. It sets up I think it sets up the rest of the movies later on as well.
That's so true. I think it not being like a win has nothing to do with it, because this is like just the beginning of his journey.
And he still feels like a hero, quote unquote, even though he doesn't outright win. You know what I mean?
He's always a hero as long as he saves his hat.
That's crucial. You can't see me and Lindsay, unfortunately, but we are going to be rocking our indie hats.
Yes.
At the end of this recording, just for funsies. Check our socials if you would like to see. What do you say to the criticism now that you've seen it with fresh eyes? And I don't know if this criticism is lobbed at the entire series, but what do you say to people who have this theory out there that nothing about this movie would change if Indy wasn't in the story?
I feel like Indy is the story.
Ooh.
So
got him.
Like case closed.
She said, "You're wrong." So on our podcast, we have already covered one Spielberg movie. Do you remember which one that is?
AI.
Hell yeah. Um, we went for the B-sides, the rare hit, the underground Steven Spielberg, because we're not like other girls.
Yeah, we're quirky and we know things that people don't.
Exactly. We're different and unique. So we didn't do any of the like popular Spielberg movies yet. So when we do cover another Spielberg, you can pull up his filmography if you want, because he's made so many movies. What would your Spielberg Mount Rushmore be, and what do you think we would cover next for our show?
Well, we definitely should cover Jurassic Park at some point.
Hell yeah. That's on mine as well.
We should do Jaws.
Hell yeah. I love Jaws.
We should definitely do Jaws.
Okay, so we got Jaws, Jurassic Park. Okay. Yup.
Let's see.
We've already done AI, obviously. That's an honorary Mount Rushmore spot.
Minority Report.
I am a Minority Report defender.
Oh my god, yes. I love Minority Report.
I ride pretty hard for that movie. I think that's a great pick. So yeah, I think you have one. Do you have one more pick?
Okay, let me see.
While you look that up, I'm obviously going to keep Jurassic Park in there. E.T.
Oh yeah.
E.T. Just to crush my soul, and anyone who wants to check out a devastating E.T. story about me, listen to our first episode of our podcast. It involves a Thanksgiving screening of E.T. that my sister and I will never forget. So definitely Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I think you're right on Jurassic Park. So in our Rushmore, Indiana Jones doesn't even make it in?
No.
Oops.
I fear not.
I fear not. I would also give a very honorable mention to Catch Me If You Can. I fucking love that movie.
Yes. Oh my god. That one would be my fourth.
Hell yeah. There we go. Yeah. And to round this out, Andrew had a great prompt. Who do you think would be a good modern day Indiana Jones? Because one just came to me, but you're not gonna like it, and I don't really like it either. I just think he fits the vibe.
I think Theo James.
Interesting. Oh, that's a good one. I was gonna say Glenn Powell.
Oh no. No. Absolutely not. I can't take that smile trying to portray Indiana Jones. Those teeth? No, I can't.
Lindsay hates Glenn Powell.
I don't hate him, but I'm like, give me somebody different. I just saw a TikTok about this girl. She was like, I'm gonna start smiling like Glenn Powell to ward off men. And she was like trying to fit like both rows of her teeth in a smile. So funny. No, please never. But honestly, it would probably happen. Like that's probably what would happen.
I think it's more likely he's kind of a franchise guy. He's already gotten into Twister and
it
Top
probably
Gun.
would be Glenn Powell.
And he's doing The Running Man soon, which is a remake of an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie from the 80s. So I feel like if they were gonna go modern, Glenn Powell's a good bet.
Want somebody tanner.
That's fair. I mean, he's from Texas. He can probably tan up. But Theo James is interesting. The only dig against him is he's British. And I'm trying to make movies American again.
Let's see. I forgot he was British.
That's my only knock against him. And it's not even like a really fair knock. I'm just really tired of British people playing Americans. Like, give us our jobs back. I'm sorry. We have so little.
You're probably not gonna like this, but Clint Eastwood's son. Have you seen any
Oh,
of his
he's
movies?
scary. I don't like him.
He's
Scott.
I think he's kind of hot though.
Oh my God. Scott Eastwood you're talking about?
Let me look him up.
Oh, he does have Indiana Jones' face though. He's 39. Okay, he's a little bit older than me.
Oh, he is kind of scary though.
He's a little scary. Is he from the Fast and Furious? Anyway, Scott Eastwood, not bad, not bad.
I can come up with better though. Does he have to be white?
He doesn't. Oh, duh. I mean, if we move it out of the so
If we were to move it out of white men, it would be Michael B. Jordan.
Oh hell, I was thinking him as well. I was gonna say if we move it out of the 1930s through the 1960s, which is when these movies take place, it would definitely not be Michael B. Jordan during that time period. But yes, if we modernized it, then yes, I agree, Michael B. Jordan. What do you think about do you feel? I mean, he's kind of old now. Ryan Gosling, I could see Gosling
the age
for
that
sure.
Harrison Ford was at, I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Gosling is a good pick there, but
just God, please not Chris Pratt. Whatever
Hell
we
no.
do, no.
No, we
No
are
Chris
we are anti.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good short list of people. I would watch all of those. You would really have to talk me into Scott Eastwood, but who knows? Who knows? One woman's Scott Eastwood is another woman's Glenn Powell.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And with that, now I don't know how to end it. Oh no. Thanks, Andrew, for letting us back on your show, even though we
Yes, thank you.
caused such a stir the last time we were on. I feel like we've grown since then. We've changed. We didn't do a Notes app apology, and we're not going to, but just know that we're listening and learning, okay?
We're listening and we're learning.
And we're very, quote unquote, sorry for anyone we may have offended with our last outing. But again, not
I just
really.
thought we were funny.
Oh, we were funny as See?
What was that?
We were funny as fuck.
Funny as fuck. And where can we be found?
Regretfully, we can be found on Instagram at PostFilmClarityPod. We can also be found on YouTube and TikTok at PostFilmClarityPod. Please follow us on Letterboxd. I think that's probably my favorite social media app. That's not even a question. It's definitely Letterboxd at PostFilmClarity. The thing about the emails is I like them, but also don't be annoying.
Yeah, just be silly and playful.
If we are going to be receiving the emails, then I think it's fair that we tone police them a little bit. So watch your mouth. But you can email us at postfilmclaritypod@gmail.com.
Yeah, the email that JJ
Yes.
sent us.
We love JJ.
That was prime example. Just
do that.
We want to hear how giddy you are about listening to our podcast and anything you have on your mind about any current movies.
Yeah, and that's it. And as long as we're not in podcast jail, we'll see you soon. Bye, honeys.
Oh my god, that was so cute. Did you just come up with that?
Yes, I did.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
What's up, Revisionist Almanac? This is Myke from CineMusts, and thank you so much for inviting me on this collaboration to celebrate what is and very well might always be my favorite movie of all time, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I will try to keep this brief. I've talked a lot about my love of this movie on both Classic Movie Must and the Best Pictures podcast with Maggie Kellett and Ian Bailey. So I've definitely had my chance to gush about this movie on air, but to, just go through the questions that are here. My memories of watching this film, I remember very distinctly when I first came across Raiders, because I am also a big theme park fan. I love Disneyland and have since I was a kid. And around the time that the Indiana Jones Adventure ride was opening up, the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, there was a lot of buzz around that. That was kind of my first exposure to Indiana Jones. And my mom, I remember, had called me into her bedroom and said, hey, the new ride that they're making in Disneyland, this is the movie it's based on. Do you want to watch it? And I remember her pulling me in right in the opening sequence and seeing the boulder and her explaining, like, that's going to be part of the ride. And I was just instantly hooked by it. I was fascinated by it. I watched the whole thing. I've been in love with the movie ever since. In terms of if the movie holds up 40 plus years later, absolutely. I think the charm of Raiders and a reason why it is my favorite movie is that it is not trying very hard to be more than what it is. It is very like surface level adventure movie. There's not a lot of like deep thematic material here. It is more of just everything in the craft of filmmaking is coming together to make a great adventure movie. So I think all of that stuff still holds up. I think it's well plotted, well edited, well written, well scored, well acted. It's just a blast. All it was ever designed to be was an effective thrill ride for an audience, and I think it still holds up 40 plus years later and will continue to hold up because it's just kind of perfect in every little nut and bolt that is put into it. Favorite shot, favorite sequence or scene? I mean, I just said it's all kind of perfect. I think I always have a soft spot in my heart most for the truck chase scene. There's something just so great about that heavy-handed, over-the-top, like literal knight riding a horse against the forces of evil, and just how fun the sequence is, how batty and off the walls it gets. The stunt work is amazing. There's just this never-ending slew of Nazis for indies to go after. But I mean, you could throw a rock at any sequence in this movie, and I think it could stand a shot to be my favorite, even the smaller dialogue scenes. But I'll go with the truck chase. In terms of if Revisionist Almanac got this correct to award this Best Picture of 1981, now this one's tricky for me. As much as I love Raiders, I'm always real hesitant about slotting it in on, competitive categories and best of lists and stuff because of, what I said. It's not a film that strives to be this deep commentary on what it means to be human or things like that. And I think like that kind of gravitas kind of comes with a movie that should have won Best Picture. But like it would have got my vote, I think in terms of like the nominees that year, I think Atlantic City is the one to me that kind of most like hits the beats of like, I enjoy this as a movie and it does kind of say something about the human experience. But like I'd cast my vote for Raiders. In terms of it, winning for direction, absolutely. This movie is directed to the nines by Steven Spielberg. It's helmed by a very confident, steady hand. And potentially the one I most agree with is you guys gave supporting actress to Karen Allen, who I think is, though beloved, criminally underrated in the movie because I think she does so much in the role of Marion. And probably like outshines Harrison Ford as an actor. So I don't have problems with any of these. Like they would have gotten my votes. The vote just kind of comes with a little bit of nervous, like, I know, but it's just fun, but I like it. In terms of if I have any thoughts on Chariots of Fire, I did talk about this. I'll plug that show again, the Best Pictures podcast with Maggie and Ian. We talked about all 5 nominees, and my thing is I joined the majority that I truly hate Chariots of Fire, and it kind of kills me because I feel like as a person who ran track and like I know that world a bit, like I should be interested in that movie. I find it boring as sin. I think this year is one of the rare exceptions where like literally the worst nominee out of the 5 won. Usually, we're not pleased with who wins Best Picture, but there's always like something that you're like, oh, at least it didn't go to that. But in this lineup, it's like literally any of it. Reds, Atlantic City, On Golden Pond, even. Like I'd rather any of them had the Best Picture than Chariots of Fire. I think it's a pretty boring, awful movie with hardly any distinguishing features or characteristics, and time has certainly not been kind to it. Ranking each film in the franchise, it's a boring list. I think at the bottom I do have Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Dial of Destiny, I would say, fourth place, but not like this massive leap. I appreciate at least some things Dial of Destiny was trying to say, but the limitations of where Harrison Ford is at in the story, it wasn't like a particularly inspired bit, whereas King of the Crystal Skull I think still had some indie magic, but there's just like so much in the plotting of Crystal Skull and everything that just doesn't work for me. So after that, I'm really onto it. When we get into the original trilogy, I would have Temple of Doom at my third, but I love Temple of Doom for all of its dark wackiness and really putting the pedal to the metal on just like filmmakers playing with action figures, and I think that movie is tons of fun. I think what puts it at third is poor Kate Capshaw, who I adore as Spielberg's real-life partner and how supportive they are of each other. But I think, when you're in the wake of Karen Allen, like I think to have the role of just the screaming blonde does a disservice to the franchise. But I really love Temple of Doom. I could watch it anytime. Second would, of course, be The Last Crusade, which I'm really a big fan of. For a long time, I had debated if it was actually my favorite indie movie. It captures a lot of the fun of Raiders again. Still very much filmmakers playing with toys. I think Sean Connery is a great addition, and there's a lot of genuine pathos to the character of Indiana Jones I think we get out of that relationship. So I'm a big fan there. But then Raiders is just top. Like I said, I think everything about it is just perfect. It's a mold setter, a mold breaker, easy number one. It's a franchise I hold near and dear. I could watch any Indiana Jones movie at any time, and I wouldn't be stewing in anger at it because I love hanging out with the character. Leading to the next question, do I think Harrison Ford's more famous for Indiana Jones or Han Solo? I gotta go with Indy, which I know he would want because he has a lot more affection for this character. He actively is grouchy about playing Han Solo, but he'd come back to play Indiana Jones as many times as he could take. So I'd say that one, it's kind of just more of a distinctive character, but Han Solo I think is great. He did something magical with Han Solo. I think it's just tainted by the fact that he doesn't want to play the character. Your next question, if I was going to recast Indy with a contemporary actor, I have to refuse to answer this question. One, because I'm bad at it. Of all the jobs on a film production I couldn't do, which is all of them, I think casting would be the thing I would be absolutely worst at. I am being on Best Picture cast, where this is a category and you have to recast somebody. I just suck at this, so I have to refuse. I have to agree with Harrison Ford, who said in interviews, like, when he's gone, the character's gone. It's cute he thinks that, like, the Hollywood machine isn't going to try to cash in, but, like, he is Indy to me, and I don't want him replaced. That's a bit of my beef with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, is it hints at, like, he might get replaced. So I'm not going to do this one. I look forward to what everybody else has to say, though. I'll absolutely answer the next question. Is Raiders on my Spielberg Mt. Rushmore? I'm always down for Mount Rushmore questions. And so this one's tough. When I do Mount Rushmore rankings, I tend to think of like, what are the 4 components or categories of this topic and how is each one best represented? So for me, I have to think first and foremost with Spielberg, I think of him as a fun director. I think a lot of his movies are about kind of letting the inner kid out and having fun making a movie. I've used the phrase a couple times, like it's like filmmakers playing with action figures in the best way. And there's a bunch that fit into this category. I think Raiders does that. I think to a certain degree Jaws does it, Jurassic Park, Tintin. I think overall you do have to give this one to Jaws, just because I think you get a richer thematic experience out of it. I think Jaws is a little bit more about some like issues of the human experience a bit while still being a monster movie. It's also a perfect movie that's directed to the nines and is thrilling and fun, and also has a bit of that, like it's just a straightforward movie about shark eating people. And then the next category I think of with Spielberg is there's always this sense of wonder. And so you hit that again with things like Jurassic Park, But I think this one has to go to E.T., which is the movie I think he would most want to be remembered for, just because I think that is really getting at the wonders of the universe. Again, a bit more thematic heft than Raiders would have. And then, of course, like with Spielberg, there's the "but I can be serious too," guys. And you know, lots of stuff on this that I love. There's your Lincolns, there's your Saving Private Ryan's. The obvious one I gotta go with here, I think, is Schindler's List, the movie that put him on the map as like a force to be reckoned with, that I think still stands apart. It's not like total Oscar bait the way it seems set up. It kind of, I think it was lambasted at the time as like, oh, Spielberg wants to make a serious movie. He's going to make a movie about the Holocaust. I think it still stands as one of these supreme movies about that tragedy. For a lot of reasons I could go off on. So, you know, it only leaves one left on the Mount Rushmore, and I just have this embarrassment of riches and all these movies I love left on the table. And so I think I am just going to slot Raiders into this. I was tempted almost to do Catch Me If You Can as like the surprise, like you wouldn't expect him to do this, but I think Schindler's List kind of also fit into that, or something like Color Purple. So, you know, the first thing I thought of was Spielberg's the fun director, so I think that's worth 2 slots on the Mount Rushmore. So I am going to still put Raiders on there. So my Mount Rushmore is going to be Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jaws, E.T., and Schindler's List. Killing me to leave just a boatload of stuff out there. Jurassic Park, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Saving Private Ryan, even newer stuff. I think his newer stuff, while clearly not up to the bar set, 3 of my 4 are in that very early stage of his career. I have a lot of respect for what he's done even in the past 10, 15 years. I really, really do love Lincoln. I think Tintin is really back to like what made Raiders great. So yeah, he's a director that I love, and I think that's where I'd settle on him, but I think anybody who had 4 completely different movies would not have a bad Spielberg Mount Rushmore. Next question, how important is John Williams' musical score to the story and character? I mean, it's almost everything. I don't want to say it's everything because that does a disservice to Lawrence Kasdan as a screenwriter. It does a disservice to the performers. But, I mean, what is a Spielberg movie without a John Williams score? They've certainly happened before, and they're still good, but there is none of the adventure. He wrote a score where he had 2 themes that he couldn't decide on, and Spielberg said, well, I can't either, so let's use them both. And just, a masterful use of leitmotif and character themes, bombastic and triumphant when it needs to be, sinister when attached to the Nazis and the bad guys. It's all of it, man, and it kills me at Lost to Chariots of Fire again. And I get it, John Williams definitely has enough Oscars, but Chariots of Fire gets it for the one hook, and it's a synth score, and it's very 80s, and John Williams is doing a somewhat classical, in air quotes, orchestral thing, but I mean, it's just stood the test of time. You can get pumped listening to this music, so absolutely inseparable to the story, to the character. It tells it all. It complements everything beautifully. Okay, the big one always thrown out to fans of Raiders. Does it bother me that the film's plot would have played out exactly the same with or without Indiana Jones' involvement? No, I also don't try to fight this one too hard because it's a valid critique of the story. I don't think things would have played out exactly the same. Who's to say, that Tote and his goons would not have seriously wounded, maybe even killed Marion to get the medallion? I think there's kind of some fun gray area there, because who's to say if Indy hadn't shown up, they actually would have been perfectly reasonable, offered her money and gotten out of there. Maybe they only threatened violence because they know Indiana Jones has been there. But, if only for the fact that, like, he's there to intervene, to get Marion out of Nepal, to save her so that she can save him. And because the dynamic between those 2 characters is great, I think that has bearing on the plot. But, the whole thing, like, the Nazis get the Ark, they open the Ark, God takes care of it. I don't have a problem with that being a Deus Ex Machina, one, because it's literally the hand of God coming out. Like, it's literally Deus Ex Machina. It's fun. It's this, kind of with the truck chase and everything, it's like you can imagine this kid, he's a Jewish kid, he's kind of picked on his whole life for his family's religious heritage, and now he gets to make this movie that's like, yeah, screw these guys, like we're going to throw them under trucks and we're going to melt their faces and make their heads explode. There's a lot of fun there, even in like this horrifically violent moment. And, again, like Raiders is not necessarily about the plot. The plot is this strung together sequence of events, and really the key to it is you have these characters that you care about, or you have these antagonists that you fear, and so you just want to see these forces go head to head. And if Raiders has any sort of thematic heft to it, it really is just a straightforward good versus evil story, and the theme is in the face of seemingly unstoppable evil, it is important never to give up. And so I think that still plays true, and if you want to, be upset that he doesn't impact the plot, that's fine. But I think he's still, his actions and his dogged pursuit of the Ark, so it doesn't get into the wrong hands, reinforces this theme, and I still think makes the movie a rewarding experience on a story level. But again, I get it if it bugs you that it all would have played out the exact same. Like, it's a valid critique. So our last question is the enduring power of Indiana Jones baked into the fact he is often failing and in turn making him more vulnerable? Absolutely. I always felt that what made Indiana Jones great as an action hero is he has a bit of the John McClane thing where he's beat up he's vulnerable, he gets his ass kicked. And one of the great scenes that could have been my favorite sequence is it's not the years, it's the mileage scene where you finally see this action hero who's been doing all this amazing stuff, and you actually get this moment to see like, oh, once the adrenaline wears off, this really hurts and is exhausting. I think another endearing part of the character is his tendency for manic improvisation that succeeds to varying degrees, and I think it's another reason that makes the opening sequence so great, and that could have been my favorite sequence too. That the opening functions like this James Bond sequence where it doesn't have much bearing on the plot, but it's kind of there to be fun, and in this case it's to introduce you to a new character, and it kind of tells you everything you need to know about him. His look, his weaponry, his demeanor, but you also you get his like very researched, methodical approach to his task. But when the chips go down and the idol, sinks, it's just manic improvisation, and it's just blindly running across the stepping stones that are triggering, and it's just leaping over a pit, hoping he's going to grab it. And you'll just see that time and again, and it's summed up in the great line right before the truck chase of how are you going to get there? I don't know. I'm making it up as I go. And I think that is also a real big endearing part of the character. Again, speaking to that theme I thought up, that it's important to never give up in, opposition to pure evil, that, he doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have it figured out. He just knows he has to do it. So yeah, I think Indiana Jones is a great character. He's given shades of like morality, that he's a grave robber. He's, in the beginning, he's not even stealing from a dead civilization. They're very much alive and well, and they're completely right to chase him out of their territory because he's trying to desecrate their holy place to bring this thing to a museum. And Harrison Ford just plays him cool. I'd probably have given him a Best Actor nomination. I don't know that I would have given him a win, but he is a great character. He's an all-timer for again, every element, from the look, he has clear character flaws and characteristics. And I'm just glad he's gone down as somebody that even subsequent generations continue to latch on and think is cool. So yeah, man, it's already longer than I had hoped it would be, but thanks for letting me gush, guys. I love this movie. I really do. For all I can say that I think it's a perfect movie, or that I can say like it's a very flawed movie, and I very much see people having problems with it. To me, it's a perfect movie. I will never not enjoy putting it on and watching it. I look forward to showing it to my kids for the first time when they're old enough. It's just a blast. It's a fun movie. It's everything I go to the movies for. I think every single person working on it was just at the top of their game. And they also went into it with this veneer of like, we don't have to like try to make a masterpiece. It was kind of filmed to be on the run and a little gritty, and they didn't want to do a million takes. I think they tapped out at like 4 takes max for any given thing. So yeah, I love Raiders. Thank you guys so much for helping me be a part of this collaboration. I would never turn down an opportunity to gush about Indiana Jones or Steven Spielberg. So keep up the good work, and thanks for giving this one some top props in the Revisionist Almanac.
This is All Things Movies. You can find me on Twitter or X, whichever you prefer to call it these days, with the handle @thatmoviepage. Does Raiders hold up after 40 plus years? Absolutely it does. I think it's one of the greatest action-adventure movies ever made. It might even be the greatest action-adventure movie ever made. For me, as far as Steven Spielberg's movies go, this is my favorite, and then after that I would place Jaws, Catch Me If You Can, and then a toss-up either between Schindler's List and Minority Report. My favorite sequence in the movie is the truck chase. I think it's one of the best action sequences ever filmed. It's one of those scenes that I really just never get sick of seeing. I do tend to revisit the movie a couple of times a year, and sometimes then I'll just throw on the truck chase just for something to watch because it's just absolutely perfect. I've seen it more times than I can count at this stage, and it still never gets boring.
Hello, Andrew and Revisionist Almanac listeners. My name is Eli Price. I am the host of The Establishing Shot, a podcast where we do deep dives into directors and their filmographies. I have covered a few directors, all of Wes Anderson and Christopher Nolan so far, and kind of in the last stretch of a Spielberg series at the moment. Hopefully, probably more of those episodes will have come out by the time this releases. But yeah, you can find me on all the socials at Establishing Shot Pod, or if you just go to establishingshotpod.com, there you can just kind of find all the links to all the socials, all the places where you can find the podcast and all that. So I would love for you to check it out. But yeah, I'm excited to share some thoughts on Raiders of the Lost Ark. I obviously have covered that in my Spielberg series. So when Andrew put it out to get some thoughts on the film, I was excited to do that. I personally do not really have any like memories as a kid watching this movie. I'm pretty sure I saw it early on, but I don't really have any memories of that. I always say when I think of Harrison Ford, I think of him as Han Solo, because that's kind of what I grew up with. But I did come around to really getting into the Indy series later in life, and then especially covering it for my podcast. And man, does it hold up. It's really at the end of the day, you just kind of see the influence that Spielberg has had on so much action filmmaking, action and adventure filmmaking really since then. And yeah, it's one of those movies that you can go back to. It doesn't feel like, it's definitely a product of its time, but I think what happens when you kind of make movies about the past from where you are currently, it becomes more timeless than when you're making movies about your modern time that you're making your movie in. So, Spielberg making a movie in the 80s about the 40s it's a bit more timeless than if he were making movies about the 80s in the 80s, if that makes sense. I think that's just kind of a product of having time to assess that era and just be able to go back and make movies that I don't know, kind of speak to a past, being able to reflect on that past in a more objective way. Obviously, Indiana Jones movies don't do that a ton. They're a bit more fun, but just that idea of making movies about the past end up being more timeless in a way, I think. That's not a hard and fast rule, I don't think, but that's kind of what I was thinking about why this is so timeless. But also it's just Spielberg at his best, and just composing scenes and setting up characters and building tension and getting you excited. So there's obviously that too. A favorite sequence or scene, obviously the probably the one that should be said and probably has been said by others is just one of the best openers ever. You have the 3 minutes of build up before you even see Indiana Jones's face. You see the hat first, and then into the temple, swapping out the coins for the idol, or the sand rather for the idol, and then the giant stone. That's all great. I will say that's probably the objective answer. My personal answer is later on in the movie when he's fighting the plane mechanic, just because there's this multi-layered action tension being built. You have the mechanic coming out, Indy fighting the mechanic. You have Karen Allen up in the plane, trying to get out of the plane. She's stuck in there. You have gasoline leaking, and that's starting to run towards something. There's the propeller that you're having to keep an eye on. There's just so much going on that Spielberg just so expertly layers on top of each other, building on tension upon tension. And yeah, I just think that's a masterfully made sequence that I love. Were the revisionist almanac people right about awarding this the best film of 1981? I would say yes. That's the objective right choice. I was looking at the year. It's not a terribly strong year, honestly. From what I can gather, I haven't seen a ton from 1981 personally. But my personal favorite from the year would probably be Michael Mann's Thief. It's just a little bit more, I guess, appealing to me in what Michael Mann is doing there than Indiana Jones. But I like them about the same. So it's hard for me to like. It would be hard for me to, like, if I was being objective, say that Thief should have it over Raiders. But yeah, I would say it's the right choice. Not a very strong year. Maybe Andrew and the other people on that show kind of had some other opinions about that. But that's just, I haven't seen enough, probably, is my problem from that year. Best direction, Steven Spielberg, yeah. Supporting actress, Karen Allen, I don't know. That's fine. I just haven't seen enough, so I can't really speak to a whole lot to that. But yeah, definitely in hindsight, like, it's been the most influential. And so, yeah, definitely the right choice there. And yeah, the best picture winner from that year, Chariots of Fire. Blind Spot, haven't seen it, so I can't even really speak to that. Ranking the Indiana Jones franchise. So my personal favorite has always been The Last Crusade. I think it does all of the great things that Raiders does, but also you add in Sean Connery and you have that father-son dynamic. There's a ton of great chemistry between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery. So that's just my personal favorite. And then Raiders is kind of right there under it for me. And yeah, the others are Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny, not the best received, especially Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I actually like it probably third. And then Dial of Destiny and Temple of Doom isn't my favorite. It's still really good and enjoyable, but just not quite. It's doing something a little bit different than I think all of the other indie movies are, but still really good and enjoyable. Yeah, recasting Indiana Jones with a contemporary actor. I was trying to look at like what actors kind of match the age that Harrison Ford was at the time. And then I was looking at like, okay, which actors could kind of pull off this kind of rugged everyman, but still good looking kind of thing. and then also do the stunts and the action, and also, you know, have that movie star quality that Harrison Ford has. So I pulled a few out. The one that probably is, I got three names. The least likely would be Josh Hartnett. He's a little bit older than that age range I was looking for, and maybe a little bit too clean in his good looks, but I think he could definitely pull off all the other elements. The next one up, second in line, I would have Sebastian Stan. He's kind of shown that he can do that sort of role with, you know, Bucky Barnes in the Marvel universe. I think he could probably pull it off. And then my number one pick would probably be Austin Butler. He's kind of like, he can kind of morph into anything you need him to be. He has the good looks. He can make it look clean like Elvis, or he can make it look more rough like he does in the Bike Riders. He has that movie star quality. He can do the stunts and the action. He's all about that sort of stuff. So, I think Austin Butler would be a really good if they were to. I wouldn't want them to recast and redo Indiana Jones, but that would be probably who I would go with. Is Raiders on my Steven Spielberg Mount Rushmore? Again, this is one of those things. The objective one, yes. But my personal Mount Rushmore at this point in time would be Jaws, Schindler's List, E.T., and Jurassic Park. That's just personally. Objectively, though, yes, Raiders has to be on there. John Williams, is his musical score important to the story? Is it vital? It's kind of one of those things where it's like, could you have the movie without the score? Yes, but it's hard to really imagine it without it. I think that the score has become kind of iconic and synonymous with the movie, so I guess you would have to say it's important to the story and the character, because you can't really think of Indiana Jones without thinking of that Raiders March theme. And so, yeah, it's important. Would it have been just as good without it? I mean, probably, because it's Steven Spielberg. So I don't know. It's a tough question. It's a good question. But tough for me to answer. It's almost one of those things where it's like, I don't really want to answer this question because I don't want to imagine it without the John Williams score. So I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts there, I guess. The film's plot. This is an interesting thing. Does it bother me that the film's plot would have played out exactly as it did with or without Indiana Jones's involvement in the story? And this has always been a question that people ask about, like, Indy doesn't really actually do anything at the end. He's just there watching. If he would have let them have it to begin with, it would have been the same results. And my answer to that is, like, that's not really the point of Indiana Jones. The point of Indiana Jones is the thrilling adventure. It's the journey. It's, the Nazis that you punch along the way, and it's the discovery, and then also just this idea that is kind of consistent with maybe not as much with Temple of Doom in a way, but definitely all the other ones, where you have this like transcendent moment of kind of like almost like campy transcendence, if that's a term. If not, I just came up with it. Campy transcendence, where you have Indiana Jones, experiencing something that he can't explain. And so, yeah, he could have just let them have it and it would have been the same results, but he needed to be there because that's the point of Indiana Jones. At the end, he encounters something that is beyond explanation. And that, that makes the adventure and the thrill of it all worth it in the end. So yeah, I just don't think like that question understands the whole point and the fun of the movie, I guess. And yeah, is the last question about Indiana Jones being, failing all the time and kind of being vulnerable, is that add to the enduring power of the character? And I think yes, it's just one of those things where it's like, you don't want to see a character that like can't be touched and is like a Superman. It's just more relatable to see a guy accidentally fall into the right place at the right time, and Harrison Ford just pulls that sort of thing off so well. It's like he has the know-how and he has the ability, but also like there's so many cogs in the machine of what's going on in these fights and in these car chases and whatnot, that like he can't be in total control. And there's something just relatable about that, of like something's gonna go wrong. If something can go wrong, something will go wrong. And Indy, often fails and often messes up and often kind of lucks back into the right place at the right time, sort of thing. So, and that's just adds to the fun of it, and the relatability. So I love that about the character. But that's really all I have to say about Indiana Jones. I said a lot more about it on my episode on the establishing shot. Had some great guests on that episode too, if you want to go listen to it. But yeah, it's a fun movie, probably the best movie of 1981 for sure. And yeah, I love it. Love Spielberg, love Raiders, love Indiana Jones. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of this, Andrew, and thank you for listening.
Hi, everyone. We're Myke and Steven from the weekly movie Throwdown podcast, where each week we discuss a film that fits into an overarching monthly theme. So far, some of the things we've discussed have been Jason Statham films, Elmore Leonard adaptations, fictional American presidents, baseball, and all kinds of other things. And we have a lot of good months coming up too, so if you're interested, you can find us wherever you get podcasts. And you can follow us on social media too. We're at Movie Throwdown Pod, pretty much everywhere. On Letterboxd, we're just at Movie Throwdown. And before we get going today, a big thank you to Andrew for letting us share our 2 cents on Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is a pretty important film. Myke, I think you and I may have actually seen it in theaters in its first run.
Well, I'm going to rebut you right out of the gate because I do not remember seeing this in the movie theater. My memory of this is that it, like a lot of things, it was on cable. It was on HBO a lot during a period of time in that early 80s period when there weren't a lot of movies on HBO. So I probably watched this movie hundreds of times, honestly, because there are only like a rotating cast of like 20 movies. And so I watched this a lot. So my memory is sitting in my living room as a kid with that brown HBO, cable box with the push buttons and watching Raiders of the Lost Ark a lot. That's what I remember.
Well, I know I saw this in a theater because even as a little kid, I was going to the movies maybe twice a week with family members or neighbors. And I know I loved it, but I don't really recall the moment I first saw it and had my mind blown. What I do remember from around that time is all of the toys that came out around it. This was on the heels of Star Wars when Kenner had, all of the success with the action figures related to that. So they really leaned heavily into tying toys to this film. And I had them all. I had the map room play set with the little staff and the little gem that went on top. And I had the Well of Souls play set too that had like a cool little Ark of the Covenant and I think maybe a mummy. And I really love those. And so my memory of this film is kind of tied more to the toys than the actual film, I guess. And I haven't revisited it a lot between then and now. I'm more of a Temple of Doom guy. So if I would have gone back to anything, it probably would have been that.
I love that. How did I know you were a Temple of Doom guy? I knew it. That's so funny.
Hey, I'm a dark soul. What can I tell you?
Yeah. So I actually rewatched all of these recently because I showed them all to my 10-year-old son. I wanted, I was excited to show him the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies, and he loves them. It's been a lot of fun watching him love them. And honestly, his opinions kind of skew pretty close to mine. He loves the ones I love and likes the parts I like. It's pretty fun to watch it with him.
Well, I think that speaks to the staying power of the film, which I think is the next question.
Yeah, that's the next question. So, yeah. We call that a segue. We just segued right into that one. There you go.
And you'll hear a lot of those when you listen to the weekly movie Throwdown. So check us out. Yeah. How does this hold up 40 years later?
100%. And I think that as I watch more things, it only reinforces how good Raiders of the Lost Ark is, because I just watched Fountain of Youth, which is clearly a Raiders of the Lost Ark ripoff. And that movie was not good. And you think back of all the ways that people have tried to recapture what Indiana Jones and Raiders was able to do. Everything like Tomb Raider, Sahara, The Mummy. They had that TV show called The Librarian. There's all these things that want to be Indiana Jones, and it's just not. And so it's almost impossible to figure out what like that alchemy is that made these movies work so well that no one has really been able to duplicate. But every time I see a movie that's supposed to be like it makes me realize how good it really was.
Well, I think it's because it was first, right? Anything that came after it, something like Romancing the Stone, couldn't really capture what that had.
I really liked Romancing the Stone, though, to be honest.
I did too, but it wasn't this, For me, this totally holds up, and I think a big reason for it is that in this time of slick CGI films where everything is so perfect, it's nice to go back to 1981 and see something like this where, the rough edges were showing. So even though it's a fun story with an iconic character, and I guess what I love about it the most is that it's kind of an artifact from a time where you can see a filmmaker making a film. There's famously that glass scene where, it shows between Indy and the Cobra when he falls into the well. And in that same scene, there are some rubber snakes that are pretty apparent on the edges of the frame. And I love all of that. It shows that the guys from that time had a vision and they had to work to execute it with the tools available, not just like CGIing a snake in after the fact. And prior to this, outside of Star Wars, I can't really think of a more ambitious film that pulls it all together so nicely. And some of those mistakes just make it more endearing to me because it takes me back to that time. And it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think what's great is that they are also, you mentioned that it makes you nostalgic, but the thing is, it's a nostalgic project for them. I mean, what Lucas and Spielberg were basically doing were just making a movie of the serials they watched when they were kids. And so you can almost see that. There's this childlike excitement of how much they love, like recreating something that they loved as kids, which only makes it more strange that no one has been able to do what they did, which is take this and bring it into the modern age and make something that's as fun. But I mean, they were able to do it, but other people have really struggled to do the same thing.
Well, I think it's of its time, that was an era where these things were new and original, and you just can't do that anymore. Everything now is so slick and basically uninteresting, and there's no real sense of newness that Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark had. So I don't know if we'll ever get back there, unfortunately. Okay, moving on. Do you have a favorite sequence or scene?
Yeah. I think most people will say the opening sequence is their favorite sequence. And it's probably mine too. I just think it's probably one of the better ways I've ever seen a movie start, where it gives you almost everything you need to know, like right out of the gate. It tells you exactly who you're dealing with, what's going on, and just a fantastic set piece. I love everything about it, that opening sequence. But the other sequence I love, not a sequence, but a scene, is actually a scene that Lucas has always claimed to not like, that he wanted to change, which is the scene where he shoots the sword fighter. And Lucas has gone on record saying that he wishes he didn't do that. Same reason he changed Han Solo shooting Greedo, and the whole idea of he doesn't like his heroes being prone to violence first. And I think that's a huge mistake in both parts. But in this instance, the reason it's important and the reason I love the scene is because it humanizes him in a way that totally punctures the balloon of like the infallible hero. Like the reason he shoots the guy is just because he's exhausted. Like, you know, in most action movies, your action guy is just ready to go. He kills 100 people. Like he's just a wrecking machine. And Indiana Jones is just a man, and he just got tired. He's like, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. And he sees the whole thing, sees what's coming. And he's like, I just can't. And everything about that the way that it humanizes him, even though he shoots the guy to death. But I still think it's very humanizing. It's just kind of like a man exhausted with everything, and he's just ready to move on.
I agree. That moment is so small in the span of the film, but outside of the opening, it's probably the most memorable thing about it, at least as far as what resonated in the culture. And I think it's kind of winky, because there's like a little bit of like, I don't know, sort of a snark to that moment. And I think that sort of sums up Indiana Jones in a way, and the series. So that's definitely memorable. For me, I think The Well of Souls is also really fantastic because so much is encapsulated in that. It's kind of a cross-genre moment where you have adventure, but like the film is, but there's also a little bit of horror in there, maybe a hint of romance, some suspense. So because there's so much in there, I think it's an excellent representation of the film and the series at large. So that's probably why it's a favorite of mine. Okay, moving on to the next question. Were we, and this is Andrew and the episode's guest and the online voters, correct in awarding this as the actual best film of 1981?
So I have to admit, I really grappled with this. Because, you and I talk about this all the time, like what we consider Oscar-worthy movies and just, fun movies. And in my mind, like Raiders doesn't really ascend to the idea of what an Oscar-winning movie would necessarily look like. So my first instinct is almost to say, well, I don't think so. But it took me, that was days I spent thinking about this. And what I thought about was you and I on our old pod, we talked about 1982, where Gandhi won Best Picture. But we both believe that E.T. should have won Best Picture. That E.T. was the best picture of 1982. It was the most influential, the most consequential, and that is how you have to look at these things. So if you look back at 81, does anyone really talk about Chariots of Fire? Does anyone really talk about Reds? The movie everyone remembers is Raiders. Not only do they remember it, but it is by far the most influential film that came out of 81. So with that being said, it has to be, like by default, it has to be the best picture of 81 because it is head and shoulders above all the others in terms of what we think of when we think of that year.
See, that makes perfect sense to me. But when I thought about this, I kind of went on pure personal taste, and 1981 was a real doozy in my book. Anybody who listens to our show knows that I like horror films. Not to the level of like having Texas Chainsaw Massacre posters in the living room or anything, but I enjoy the genre. And I think 1981 is a big reason why. For some reason, it was peak werewolf year, and there were at least 3 films brought out that year featuring werewolves. There was The Howling, Wolfen, and An American Werewolf in London. And the latter deeply impacted me, probably for a lot of the wrong reasons, because I was like 6 or 7 when this came out, and I begged my parents to take me to see it at the movie theater for my birthday, and they did. Probably not a good decision, but it really stuck with me, and I would think that Rick Baker's effects were probably a big part of that. And also that year, Scanners came out, which I don't think I saw until a year or 2 later, but I did see that right around that time as well. And that made me a Cronenberg fan, even as a little kid. Maybe I wasn't conscious of being a Cronenberg fan yet, but as time went on, I really did discover that he's one of my favorites. And also that year, despite those two kind of being in the running and Raiders of the Lost Ark really probably deserving the title of Best Picture, as I look back at it now, at the age I am from a pure filmmaking standpoint and being the De Palma head that I am, I would give Best Picture to Blowout because I think it's just beautifully made and just incredibly acted. And when you put it up against everything else, it really stands out to me as just an incredible work of art.
Okay. Well, I was actually saving that one for the next question. Or a couple of questions down. I think they talk about some other things.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to talk about Blowout all day long.
Well, it says it also won the revised Oscars for Best Direction, Spielberg, and Supporting Actress, Karen Allen. So that's actually where I wanted to talk about it. I actually think De Palma should have won. My personal top two directors for 81. I think that Warren Beatty probably deserved the Oscar for Reds. I think that it's a singular achievement for him. Most people don't talk about it, but I think if you go back and watch it, it's a pretty powerful movie, and it's right up there with his best work. I don't think it should have won Best Picture. I don't know if it rises that level, but it's a really solid movie, and I lean towards recognizing him for the work he did on that. Two, I would say De Palma. I think that both of those people probably end up ahead of Spielberg as far as I'm concerned in terms of Best Director for that year. And for Supporting Actress, look, again, I may be the minority, but I actually think they got it right. I thought Maureen Stapleton was pretty damn good in Reds. I don't have any issue with that. We used to do this a lot in our old pod. And in this case, yeah, I actually agree with the Academy. I think Maureen Stapleton was great. I would probably still give it to her.
I'm with you on both fronts. I think I would maybe put Spielberg before Warren Beatty for director, just because of what I said about seeing those rough edges and really seeing the filmmaking that's in it. But even above him, of course, I'm gonna go with De Palma because you see a whole lot of filmmaking in Blowout, and I really love that, and I think it's just so solid. Maybe if Spielberg had a split diopter shot, he might take the lead,
right?
But I really just think that De Palma takes the win here.
The thing about Beatty is that Reds is really an actor's movie, and the performances are really strong, and so in that regard, it is why I think of Beatty. But if you think of it in terms of directing and just purely in terms of filmmaking, it's like what De Palma does in Blowout is really memorable, and that's why it's hard for me to pick between the two.
For Best Supporting Actress, I'm with you on Maureen Stapleton, but going back and watching this again, I really have a new appreciation for Karen Allen that I didn't see before.
Well, the fact that she wasn't even nominated is a crime. Let's just say that, like without a doubt, she definitely should have been nominated. So,
for sure, and I'm with you on Maureen Stapleton. I think she had a great performance. Karen Allen did too, so she's right there behind her. And also the other Allen, Nancy Allen, in Blowout was really fantastic. This was a great year for acting. So there are a lot of decisions to be made here, and they're pretty tough ones. But I think in this case, Maureen Stapleton takes the cake. All right, let's move on to the actual Best Picture winner, Chariots of Fire. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I feel about Chariots of Fire like exactly the same way I feel about Gandhi when we did 82, which is it feels exactly like the kind of movie that would win Best Picture in the 80s, and exactly the kind of movie that no one would watch again. Regardless of how you feel about it. And they're fine movies. I don't hate them, but I have never in my life thought I would love to sit down and rewatch Chariots of Fire right now. It's pretty slow. It's very British. It's just not. Yeah, it's not the kind of thing that I think you're lining up to rewatch over and over again. So my feelings about it are it's fine. The fact that it won Best Picture just again speaks to the idea of what the Academy thinks is an Oscar-worthy movie versus movies that people actually love.
I feel the same way. I think about Chariots of Fire and I think about maybe having watched it in school in the 80s for some reason, but I don't believe I've seen it out of that context. And it's weird because I'm a runner and I try to watch running movies, but this one didn't ever call to me, especially when I could just watch something like Prefontaine again.
It's true, but I also will say one of my memories of being a kid is that everybody ran in slow motion singing the theme song in Chariots of Fire. That is a thing that was just in the culture. That's true.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that the thing I do remember about Chariots of Fire is the music.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you much more about it other than that, but I think a lot of people are in the same boat. That's the thing that resonated. It's not so much the story itself or anything, but it's this music that was co-opted in the culture. I remember hearing it in commercials or seeing people slow motion running in a movie or a TV show with the song behind them. So that's the thing that lasted. And we'll talk about that a little more when we get into the John Williams score here with Raiders of the Lost Ark. But before we do that, you just watched all of these. So tell me your ranking of all of the films.
This is actually pretty easy. This is pretty easy for me. It's Last Crusade 1, Raiders 2, Temple 3, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Scrap that. Last Crusade's first, Raiders second, Temple third, Dial of Destiny 4, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is last because it was the most unnecessary movie. And I have no idea why they went back to the well and redid it. I actually didn't hate Dial of Destiny as much as a lot of other people, even though the CGI thing kind of made me sick. But I thought it was a pretty effective way to close things. I was fine with it. But Last Crusade by far is number one. And I know this is where you and we always tend to disagree on these things. I love Last Crusade most because it was the most entertaining and by far the funniest. And it holds up really well. I laughed more watching that movie. I thought finding finding the Fountain of Youth pretty much, which they try to do in that terrible movie that just came out for Apple, like we said, just done much better. Everything about it is fun. I really love that one.
Well, it's no surprise that for me, Temple of Doom is going to be number one.
Yes, the darkest one, which is like a horror movie. I knew that you would love that one.
Hey, it has child slaves and someone's beating heart pulled out and showed to them. It's right in my wheelhouse. Number 2 is Raiders. Number 3, The Last Crusade. I'm with you. Number 4, Dial of Destiny. And number 5, Crystal Skull. I don't even remember much about most of them except the first 2. But I think I need to revisit The Last Crusade because people really seem to love it.
You should. Other than the fact that Connery and Harrison Ford are like 6 years apart in age, other than that, it holds up incredibly well. It's a good time. As Sean Connery, you rarely get to see him play a character who's having that much fun. Like, I never feel like Sean Connery's ever having fun. And he actually seems like he's having fun in that. And that really helps make it for me. He's enjoying himself, so I really enjoy myself watching him in that movie.
I'm going to revisit it. It's always kind of put me off, but my wife loves it and everybody else seems to love it. So I should really go back to it again.
And that's actually why I hate the Crystal Skull so much. You ended the movie. It's rare that you get a almost perfect ending for something. You close the book and they're riding off into the sunset and you learn about his real name and it's like you get everything you need and it's over. And then like a decade later, you have to pull it out of mothballs because you can't leave any IP alone and you have to drag it out and try to make it again. It actually made me angry that they did that. And I will, yeah, it's one of the few things that I really think that Spielberg swung and missed there. It's like, just leave it alone. When you it's like the Costanza thing, when you tell the joke and you leave the room, like, just leave. Like, that's it. You did it. There's no reason to dredge it up again. Like, it was a huge mistake.
All right, well, let's move on from that. Here's a really good question. Is Harrison Ford more famous for Indiana Jones or Han Solo?
Yeah, this was hard, but my gut feeling is Indiana Jones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, strange enough, because I think that that Han Solo is a character amongst an ensemble of people, and you think about a lot of people when you think of Star Wars, but there's only one Indiana Jones, and he's the star of the movie. He's the star of the franchise, and so I think that yeah, I think if you asked him, he would definitely want to be known more as Indiana Jones because he has said that no one else should ever play the character. So him personally, he has much more affection for Indiana Jones than Han Solo. But yeah, it's a really hard choice, but I think by like a hair, I have to say Indiana Jones.
I thought about the ensemble aspect of it, and I just wonder if Star Wars isn't a more widely known property. I do think of Luke Skywalker first, but it's really easy for me to drill down and think of Han Solo right after that. So I wonder if it's just like the popularity of the franchise makes Han Solo a more known property than Indiana Jones might be.
I will just say that when we watched I watched The Fugitive with my youngest son, like a year ago, and we watched it, and he said, "Isn't that Indiana Jones?" And he didn't say, "Isn't that Han Solo?" That's all I have to go with. That's all I have to go by, and maybe because he's my son, and I showed him a lot of Indiana Jones, so that's biased. It's hard to say, but he did watch all the movie. He watched all Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but his first instinct was to call him Indiana Jones. But I don't know. So maybe that's why. But maybe that's what pushed it over the top for me.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if there's some kind of like line of demarcation, age-wise, where it holds true for us and maybe not younger people. Younger people grew up with the prequels, so maybe they didn't have as much exposure to Han Solo the way we did. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know. Maybe Andrew can do a poll and get an answer to this question from the internet or something, because it's a tough one to answer, and I don't know if there's like a specific answer for everybody. I think you have to sort of drill down on it to find the nuances. Okay, so you mentioned Harrison Ford wants nobody else to play this role, but that's the next question. Which contemporary actor would you put in the role of Indiana Jones?
I think this one's pretty easy. The only person that came to mind that makes sense to me is Glenn Powell.
Ooh, I'm listening.
I think he's the only person that has the, and I'll credit my wife on this one. She convinced me of this, and she's right. He's the only person that probably has the action chops and that sly sarcasm, that sly sarcastic humor that Harrison Ford kind of has, that I think Glenn Powell could pull off. I think he's got the combination of the two things that work.
That's a good pick. He is also very fond of IP, as we've seen with Top Gun and Twister and The Running Man's coming out. So he probably would fit right in, picking up where Harrison Ford left off. For me, I skewed a little older, and I went with Bradley Cooper, who I think has the looks, he has the charm. He's proven himself across genres. He can do comedy, he can do drama. We've seen him do action. Basically, I think the A-Team, as bad as it was an audition for Bradley Cooper to be the next Indiana Jones.
That's probably why I didn't think of him. I was thinking of the A-Team. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Well, that's a good one too. Yeah, I just, there were a couple of older actors, but that's why I was trying to go young. Like if you're starting it from scratch, you probably want a guy in his 30s maybe. So that was why I saw Glenn Powell. No, Bradley Cooper's a good one.
All right. Steven Spielberg Mt. Rushmore. Is Raiders on yours? And what are the other films up there with it, if it is?
Yeah, this ended up being incredibly hard. Only 4 movies. So no, it's not. And it gets edged out in a really, really tight race. So I think my Mount Rushmore for Spielberg is Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, which again, both came out in the same year. I'll still never get over the fact that Spielberg made Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same year. It's probably the greatest feat of filmmaking in the history of filmmaking, but we'll put that aside. So Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, E.T., and the reason I pick E.T., and so we talked about this when we did, the 82 Oscars, E.T. opened the door to completely changing what children's movies were, what movies for kids were. I think it upended the genre, and you don't have almost anything that comes out of the 80s after that, from the Goonies to the Sandlot to anything. I think all of those movies happened because E.T. happened and changed the way we see movies about kids. So E.T., in my opinion, has to be on the Mount Rushmore. And the fourth slot, it's like I was thinking about Raiders, but you have to put Jaws. Like, you can't not have Jaws on the Mount Rushmore of Spielberg movies. So in my mind, it's almost like Jaws, Close Encounters, and Raiders all have a reason they could be on the Mount Rushmore. But I think you have to go with Jaws, and that makes the 4 for me.
Okay, that's a solid Mount Rushmore. For me, we've established on our show that I'm not the biggest fan of Steven Spielberg.
I know.
Yeah, I totally recognize what an amazing filmmaker he is, and just what an impact he has, because we wouldn't have modern film the way we have it without him. But there's something, there's a kind of an underlying innocence that I find in a lot of his films that I don't really click with all the time. I always saw him and Scorsese as contemporaries, kind of like East Coast, West Coast, and he was more of a laid-back West Coast filmmaker, and Scorsese was kind of the gritty East Coast guy. So I usually lean more toward Scorsese, but that's beside the point. I was able to do this great thought exercise and put together 4 films. They do skew kind of dark, which is on brand for me. Number 1 is Jaws, which is just one of the best films ever made. I watch it every year. I love it so much. Number 2 is E.T., which I am kind of surprised by myself. I think that film encapsulates everything Spielberg is as a filmmaker, or that he was at least in 1982. And it was really impactful for me as a little kid. I think it actually made me like a more compassionate person, which I'm grateful for. And it's hard for me to watch now because I've become so compassionate. It's hard for me to see little ashy E.T. being manhandled by the government. I don't really like that, but E.T. definitely on there. Number 3, I'm going with Lincoln, because even though I'm not a fan of period pieces necessarily or historical films like this, I just thought when we watched this together a couple years ago that this was an incredible work of filmmaking, and it really shows me how he's grown as a filmmaker from the Steven Spielberg of the early days. And it's just a beautifully made film that I actually own on 4K because I liked it so much, and I can't say that about a lot of his films. And then rounding it out, despite the fact that I love Temple of Doom more than any of the other Indiana Jones films, I did put Raiders on here just because I think it's such a groundbreaking film, and to me it deserves a place up there because it, like we talked about, it sort of sets a template for the action films that try to match it in the years that follow, and none of them are successful because I just think it's so good. All right, back to the music. How important is the John Williams musical score to the story and to the character?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical. And so I was just thinking about this because I just saw the Superman trailer, the new Superman trailer. And I'm sure you notice that even in the new Superman trailer, there is a hint of the original Superman score, also made by John Williams. And why is that? Because you cannot disassociate Superman from the score that John Williams made. It doesn't matter how long it's been, 50 years, it doesn't matter. That score is so ingrained in us when we think of Superman. And I absolutely think it's the same thing with Indiana Jones. If you ever remade Indiana Jones and didn't use the Indiana Jones theme song, there would literally be riots in the streets. Like, you can't not have it. So there's just no possible way you can take apart the theme song and the character. And that's why John Williams is the greatest score composer that ever lived. But, that's, again, we could talk about that all day. But yeah, to me, it's like you don't have one without the other. It's essentially, it's absolutely critical. And again, it reminds me what's lacking in movies today. that we no longer have those iconic scores for our superheroes or our hero movies, I think is a huge miss. I would love to see that come back.
I think the closest thing we have now, and I agree with you completely, by the way, but the closest thing I can think of, and it's not a superhero, but when I think about the score to The Brutalist last year, Daniel Blumberg's score, that was just such a magnificent and memorable song that probably when I think about that film, a big part of what I think about is hearing that score in my head, the way I think of Chariots of Fire. And, you know, speaking of Chariots of Fire, it's interesting that the thing we talked about taking away from that lasted throughout the culture is the song. And that's in the same year as this. So it's just kind of interesting that you have that song being so iconic and the origin of the Indiana Jones song in the same year, sort of going head to head in the culture. It's just pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I always think about this, that I've watched, 30 Marvel movies at this point, and I can't hum you a single theme song for any of those people. None of them. So, yeah. John Williams was great.
He was. Okay, next question. Does it bother you that the film's plot would have played out exactly as it did with or without Indiana's involvement in the story?
No, it doesn't. And the reason for that is I don't know if we watch movies necessarily to have the characters change something. Really, in these kinds of movies, like we're watching the movies of the character being an avatar for us. Like we're walking through the movie and we need a point of view and a character to go through the movie with. And that's what he is for us. So we get to experience it with him and we get to watch him have harrowing adventures and go through this stuff, regardless of whether or not it affects the larger context of the movie. But he's trying, and that matters too. Like we want to know that someone's fighting the good fight, regardless of what happens. So for those reasons, that's not really why I watch a movie, to feel like, the character necessarily has an effect on something. And maybe that's because we're 80s and 90s kids and we're cynical about affecting anything. Maybe that's the other reason it doesn't bother me any. That you always feel like, well, you fight the fight, but you usually don't win anyway. So yeah, that never really bothered me.
Again, I'm in total agreement. I don't really think it matters. It's just such a fun ride either way. And yeah, you just want to go along with him. It doesn't matter what moves he makes in the middle that have a bearing on the outcome. It's just fun to go on that ride. And I can't imagine really this going any other way. So yeah, there's no real problem with him not having that much involvement in the outcome of the plot. You mentioned seeing him trying and failing, and that brings us to our last question. Is the enduring power of Indiana Jones baked into the fact that he is often failing and in turn making him more vulnerable?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what makes Raiders stand out in the 80s when you start building. The era of the 80s is about muscle-bound action heroes who are just kind of laying waste to everything in sight. And that became more of what movies were. And in 81, you still look back to Raiders because, yeah, what you have is an everyman kind of fallible hero. And it feels relatable in that way. Everything about him is off kilter except that his hat doesn't come off. And that's the one thing you can count on. But the rest of it, he's always just barely scraping by. And it made me think about Mission Impossible, to be honest. That you go back and watch all the Mission Impossibles and you realize they're almost always failing. And they only save the world by like the skin of their teeth at the end of every single movie. And I think that is a direct contrast, not a contrast, but it's a direct connection to Indiana Jones of making these heroes feel human, where they're just going to do their best. You have no idea if they're going to be able to pull it off, but they're doing their best to try. And so I think that is baked into what makes the character lovable.
I think that Mission Impossible comparison is really interesting because even though it's not archaeological like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It probably is the closest present-day analog we have to what Raiders of the Lost Ark accomplished back in 1981. It feels like the themes are similar. It hits kind of all of those beats of trying and failing and sort of always being, behind the eight ball. And that's maybe why it's so popular. Right. And yeah, that's pretty interesting. So maybe, that's going to take the place of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones going forward. We'll see. Well, that's it. We did it. So, yeah, thanks again to Andrew for letting us be a part of this. And you can find us. We are the weekly Movie Throwdown podcast. Get us wherever you get your podcasts. And we're Movie Throwdown Pod on social media, at Movie Throwdown on Letterboxd. Come find us, and we'll hope you'll give us a listen. Thanks a lot.
Once again, a huge debt of gratitude to each and every person that took time to feature on this episode and featured on the first two parts. I could not and would not have wanted to do this without each and every one of you. I hope you take the time to go to the description of this episode, where you can find the social media handles of all contributors. Be sure to support them with a follow and by subscribing to their own podcast channels. And for the final time, it's back to me to answer the remaining questions I haven't answered on the first two parts. The first question is, if they were to recast Indiana Jones with a contemporary actor, who would you pick and why? Now, there have been a ton of great answers given by all the other collaborators, and while I don't think this is the type of role you can recast easily, I'm going to give you a name just for the sake of pissing off the internet if this person were to get hired. We've already seen him fill the boots of Harrison Ford once, so why not go for it again? That's right, the young Han Solo actor himself, Alden Ehrenreich. Sure, Solo did his career no favor in terms of finding superstardom, but I think he's a really great actor all the same, and he's at the prime age in his mid-30s to take the mantle for a couple of decades if need be. So that's my pick, and I'm going to stick to it. The next question, how important is the John Williams musical score to the story and the character? In my opinion, it is everything that adds to the personality of the character. And this is not an isolated situation with the John Williams score. Almost all his most important musical compositions directly improve the story and the characters they're involved with. From Star Wars, to Jaws, to Jurassic Park, John Williams is the GOAT, and it's for a reason. The next question was, does it bother you that the film's plot would have played out exactly as it did with or without Indiana's involvement in the story? Now, full disclosure, this is a question that my wife Alicia specifically asked me to include in this, just to stir the pot. And I'd say mission accomplished on that front. This was never something I thought about growing up as I watched this movie over and over, and I don't think it's exactly accurate or fair that Indy had no hand in the plot moving along. Sure, the Nazis would open the Ark if they found it, with or without him, but his being sort of peripheral to some of the plot is also, in a way, what makes him such a unique, fun character compared to other heroic male leads of the time. And the very final question, is the enduring power of Indiana Jones baked into the fact that he's often failing and in turn making him more vulnerable? Absolutely, 1000% yes. I think what Harrison Ford understood so well as an actor is that part of his charm is in his vulnerability. Whether it's as Han Solo, Indiana Jones, Deckard in Blade Runner, to name a few of the iconic roles he's done, his struggle always allows us to empathize with him and root for his success in the face of seemingly impossible adversity. So thanks for being here, and be on the lookout for another collaboration special I'll have at the end of 2025, where more great podcasters, movie lovers, and I will talk about another revised Best Picture winner from Season 1 of the show, and also another Steven Spielberg film. We'll be at attention as we give you all our thoughts on the 1998 World War II epic that is Saving Private Ryan. But while I've got you here, I hope you'll take time to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening, as well as leaving a review. And you can, of course, find and follow me on every social media platform using the handle RevAlmanac, and that includes the YouTube channel, so make sure to head over there and subscribe as well. I'm Andrew. I appreciate you being on this journey with me, and I can't wait to see you next time.